Boom. All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to the pre-show as we wait for Redbird and BDLG, Bordy in this case, from the studio crew to file in to the chat. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're watching this as a VOD or a live stream, you can always check out the audio version of this podcast over at epiclootradio.podbean.com, everywhere podcasts are found. So that's, Spotify and Apple and Google and all that good stuff. Dude, you got to stream. Let's talk about like the Asmongold stream, because that really isn't necessarily a part of the podcast itself, but you headlining with some big names within the streaming, especially the MMO space. What was that like? Were you nervous at all, or were you just generally excited? Like, how'd that work out for you?
That's bloody terrifying. It was terrifying. No, it was amazing, like amazing opportunity to kind of get in there, but the big personalities who are very good at speaking, very good at entertaining, and I felt completely overwhelmed, to be completely honest, because there was it was such a big stage to be on. You got Asmongold's chat, Shroud's chat, Rich is in there as well, and they're just cracking jokes because they've obviously all played together before. So trying to not fit in, I don't care if I fit in or not, but trying to just be me. It was kind of tough in a way. Asmongold kind of called me out a bit at the start of New World, so it was all, whether he knew about remember me or not, but it was good fun, to be honest, and really an honor, to be completely honest, because getting put up next to them meant that the guys at New World trusted me enough not to be an idiot during it, and do you know what I mean? Like, represent New World, I guess, a little bit to some extent.
I think that'd be such a weird twist if all of a sudden it's like, hey, yeah, I played this game. I absolutely love this game. But now that I'm on a bigger stage, I'm going to completely do a 180. Like,
people were saying to me, like,
I hate.
People were saying to me, like, I should pump in messages like, so what's the button for the mount again?
Oh man, that is awesome. Yeah, like when's that you said that raid was coming next week, right?
I got too nervous and I bottled it, but yeah, it was kind of funny. It was good. I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it, and having the exclusive drops. When the boys just left and they went back to Lost Ark or Elden Ring or whatever they were playing, I was just the only one on New World, which is insane, to be honest, absolutely insane. So I had a lot of new faces coming into chat and a good opportunity for me to meet a lot of new people. So yeah, it's awesome.
So as you stream, obviously, the game itself, like what would be your general view of, I guess, if you're going to rate a sentiment of chat? Obviously, I think you're probably going to see a heavy positive, but you make New World content. Everybody who does sees the occasional like dead game. Oh my gosh, this game sucks. Like like coming into chat just to, I don't know. I guess to troll. But I always wonder, like, do you truly evangelize? Like, oh, that guy came into chat. I see what he's talking about, guys. He's right. I'm going over to Lost Ark. What do you think?
Well, I did play Lost Ark for a bit. I enjoyed the launch, but the thing is, when they give New World a bit of a troll and a bit of abuse, I kind of get it to some extent, because it didn't provide what they promised at the start. I didn't get what we feel, so I get it, but yeah, I just tell them to shut up, man. The game is beautiful at its core, and just give it time, to be honest. So
yeah, I think I always wonder, like, if when somebody says that, if it's like, are you new? Like, is this your first MMORPG? Welcome to the genre. Let's just look at the genre as a whole, and because like I've seen people advocate for, oh, these games should launch ready. And I go, yeah, that's a great sentiment. The idea of a utopia, an idea of a utopia is a great sentiment. Like, oh, a place where there's no problems whatsoever and life is happy and everybody's having a great old time. I'm on board. Point me to that game. Point me to this utopia that exists out there that we compare these games to. And then they'll be like, oh, the single player game. It's like, there's a huge difference. There's a chasm there. What's up, Redbird? Rocking the beautiful purple Syndicate. I gotta say thank you, sir, for that. Absolutely.
Yo, can you guys hear me? Hello.
What's up, BDLG?
Hey,
welcome.
Man? How do I turn the volume down a little bit? Is there a place to do that?
On this tool?
Yeah.
I have no idea. Probably under settings.
Okay, no problem. I can do it in a different way.
And then, guys, if you aren't following Redbird, Danny, and BLG, I'll make sure to include all their links. They're linked in the in chat in terms of the tweet, but we'll be able to sure to do that. What's going on, chat? How y'all doing? Nero, what's going on? Says I like Lost Ark, Gunner, but that died real fast. It didn't die. These MMOs. The only way an MMO dies is if they stop making the game. Because I still submit, and I'd love to go. We're still in pre-show while BDLG gets himself set up, and he's also streaming right now, guys. So if you're not following these guys, please do. But I submit WildStar, if it was still around today, would have benefited wildly from the last round of the WoW Exodus. I think essentially when you look at MMOs that kind of were there, 14 kind of picked up quite a bit, but I think WildStar would have done really well if it was still around and still supported. And all it needed was a different business model and obviously to keep making content. What do you guys think?
I wasn't a WildStar guy. So WildStar and ESO came out around the same time.
Yeah.
And I just I was already neck deep in ESO. So I kind of ignored WildStar, unfortunately, because I've heard a lot of good things about it. But the dead MMO thing or just game thing in general is just a weird, I think, potentially Zoomer thing that it just feels better to if I'm not playing a game, then the game's dead. That way maybe I can ignore the game. I don't know why they insist on calling it.
I always see it as a personal statement. Games die to you, die to the person. People will say any game is a dead game. That means you have a personal relationship and that relationship's over, in that regard. So I see that. And that's the point. And I'm glad you brought up ESO. ESO continued to make content. It launched in a horrible state, but it continued to make content. And then that's the MMO. It's 3 years ish to having kind of a fully fleshed out, mature, game, and I essentially maybe even the trust. I know that there'll be another ESO expansion. Why? Because they do it every year. It's like Guild Wars 2. Danny's coming from Guild Wars 2. They announced just a couple weeks ago another Guild Wars 2 expansion. I think that sets that kind of communication.
Wait, another one?
Yeah, a fourth expansion.
Yeah.
They announced
Didn't they just come out with one?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that tells everybody who's playing it, saying there's still more to come. You're not going to have to wait another 5 to 6 years between expansions this time around.
Yeah, who would have known the roadmap schematic works? You know what I mean? Telling people what's coming to keep them playing the game. Yeah, it's something I'm glad New World adopted finally, because now people know, hey, man, if I grind this out for a little bit, arenas are coming. If I grind this out for longer, I'm going to get a pirate expedition. And you know what I mean? It's just good to have that roadmap out there for players to keep them excited and logging in every day, I think.
All right, we ready to get started? BDLG, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry. I don't know how to make my cam work here and in the other software too.
Oh, don't worry about it, dude. I have no idea. It's not that.
Is it fine?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
I'm more or less making this from an audio perspective, but if you are able to update your logo as opposed to your just this gray little
sure. I don't know if I can. I don't know how to do that, but I'll
click on your settings, and then in settings you can go to low profile and you can add a little image and stuff like that. I think that ends up looking a little bit cleaner.
Yeah. Honestly, it's probably better if we didn't see videos.
I know it is, because then I would show all of you guys up because I'm the most handsome guy here. So you know what I mean? That's how it goes. Except for Brian, of course.
Oh, we got a collection of balding gingers, so it's
yeah, true.
One of these things is not like the other. Danny rocking the locks.
I'm holding on to them as long as I can.
Listen, man, my daughters donated their hair to charity, and your hair is of ample length to give one of us a wig. Okay, so that would even out the bald ratio here if you just would cut your hair and give us.
I'll take half off and give you half. Yeah.
There you go. That's the collab of the century that we've all been waiting for.
I think I've almost got it. Oh, hold on a second. I'm getting there. Sorry, boys. Sorry.
I like these things to be a little bit more just relaxed and just talking about the state of the game. And I think it's gonna be fun. I'm really excited. Thank you guys so much. And I know, hey, there it is. Rocking the logo. Perfect.
Big
So that'll be
dude.
better.
Let's go.
All right, guys. What I'll do is I'll run this. Generally, we like the outline is we're going to be talking about the state of the game. There's a lot to discuss as part of New World. Chat, feel free to weigh in with any kind of comments. Like, did Danny steal Brian's red hair? Yeah, he did. It was a trade-off. You know, like we made a pact. So like he'll come on podcasts, and that's just the nature of it. That's the deal with the devil I had to make.
The demonic pact.
The demonic pact. Have hair. And so we'll run the intro on this. I believe, especially as it relates to podcasts, this will stay up here on the channel. So I'll chapter it out, etc., as necessary. And also then you can go listen for the audio version of this as well. So if you guys aren't following the New World to Go podcast as kind of a plug right here before we jump into the show, please do. It's my favorite podcast to listen to while I work out. I go to the gym, and it's like I get mad when I run out of episodes. So it's like, heck, comment, guys, film more. But anyway, all right, I'm going to go ahead and run our intro. They've changed my layout a little bit, so hopefully I get it absolutely right. So, all right, here we go. Hello and welcome to the Epic Loot Radio podcast. Joining me this week is a roundtable of epic proportions. We got the Studio Loot crew, Danny, Redbird, BDLG, or Bordy, if you will, coming in from an incredible 1.5 patch with New World, and also with an incredible marketing push from Amazon. So there is a lot to discuss about the state of the game. Is now the time to return? We could take this in any direction ultimately that we want, as this is a casual podcast. If you're listening to the MP3 audio, I'm going to tell you, you're a legend. If you're watching us with us live, you're a double legend. And thanks so much for the 6 likes on these podcasts and videos. Let's go around the room, introduce the panel in case you guys haven't heard of them, don't know what they're doing. Welcome to the New World crew. They run the New World Fans website. They got the podcast, and they also stream over on Twitch. Let's start with Redbird, and then we'll go Danny, and then BDLG.
I am Redbird. I mean, you did it, Brian. You basically announced what we do. We basically we run a website called New World Fans, and then newworld-map.com. We also just put up our home website, studioloot.com, which will have all of our content, including New World content, as kind of a center or a hub there. So go check that out. And then, we host the New World to Go podcast. We hit our 2-year anniversary a little bit ago. So
congrats.
We're in there. But yeah, all things New World basically is what we do.
Nice. Yeah, I've been basically playing New World since alpha, then the preview, which I do miss a lot actually. And yeah, joined Red and Bordy at the start of New World, creating content together, and just it's been awesome so far. New World, obviously, we love it a bit. We've been playing a bit of Lost Ark on the side as well. But New World at its core is a quality game, so I think we're all continuing to put some energy and love into it and hope that it gets better as well. But yeah, I'm Danny, and thanks for having me, mate.
Yeah, man. They covered just about everything, I think, Brian. They nailed it, I think. I feel a little bummed out though, man. I don't know if you saved the best for last or put me at last because I'm like the last to get picked at like soccer or something, man. You know, I don't know which way to view that, but it's okay. It was the second one. Maybe so. That's the story of my life. It's okay though, Brian. I love you. They about covered it though, man. Yeah. Thanks for having us, by the way.
Oh man, I think this is like when we're sitting here looking at, and I was telling Danny in the pre-show, like we're just kind of chatting as we're all kind of getting ready for the show, and I go, what I'm experiencing right now, and I don't know if this is just a reflection of the media that gets fed to my algorithm, but I saw for the first time in history the Reddit community very positive about New World, and I thought that was just mind-boggling.
Maybe the first time ever, yeah.
Right, to see like people. I saw somebody reply going like, "What's going on? No one's getting downvoted for having a positive opinion about New World right now. It is truly a unicorn time of the season." And so I want to start with that. Are you guys feeling any kind of sentiment change after 1.5, after the double XP weekend? What's your kind of view as content creators, especially as kind of, I would say, leaders within the space of New World itself, when people look to like who are the faces of the content creation? In my mind, it comes to Studio Loot. If there's somebody else out there, I just offended and I have no idea who you are. Sound off in the comments. Let me know, because that's how I find content creators. But what's the sentiment read? Let's actually start with Bordy. namely because he's live right now, and so his chat could probably tell him that we all suck or that we're amazing. I don't care. Bordy, what do you think?
Yeah, they're saying that you guys are awful. No, they're not. Everybody over here is saying, "Oh, it's on Ginger Prime channel. We love that guy." Yeah, man. I think that the sentiment for New World right now is in a pretty incredible spot, man. It's crazy to watch kind of the ebbs and flows of the game and how it's kind of evolved. And I think now I feel like we've almost kind of hit the bottom and now it's on the way up. And it is pretty awesome to watch everyone kind of receive the game in a positive manner right now. And I, for one, am loving it, man. There's been a lot of hype around the game and you can definitely feel it. I mean, whenever you're streaming, whenever you're posting videos, the content is just like people it's just received better. And it's an exciting time for the game for sure. And I think we can all say that we're excited for the future because it's good right now, man. Things are good.
Danny, what do you?
It's amazing. This is the first time since launch where the numbers are. I know we're speaking a lot about concurrent players, and it's not the be all and end all, but it's the first time since launch where there's been an increase in players rather than a decrease. It's kind of, I feel like maybe it's hit rock bottom. Who knows what the future holds? But they delivered a patch. And touch wood, it was pretty good. Like there wasn't drops off in, the auction house stayed up. There wasn't loads of dupes. There wasn't loads of issues. It was a good patch, and the blunderbuss was pretty balanced, and it feels good. Like the wars feel good, the PvP feels good. So yeah, it feels good, to be honest, and everyone seems to be positive. There's a few that aren't still, of course, but the majority of people are positive at the moment. It hasn't really happened like this before, so it's good. It is good.
Red?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes a long ways to put out, a piece of content that, like Danny was saying, doesn't have a lot of bugs, a lot of, game-breaking issues that cause like the trading post to shut down and stuff like that. But also, I think the overall, like the package that they put with it, with the double XP weekend, they were able to improve a lot of the quality of life, like core aspects of the game that were frustrating on the day-to-day basis for players to like kind of experience, such as like storage management, fast travel, which I think got fixed the patch before, and all those things that like it's not like a gameplay feature. It's not like an expedition or a new weapon, but it is something that generally affects like 50% of your gameplay. And I think they're doing a great job with fixing those like quality of life things. That way, when new players do come with like a double XP weekend, or it's going to be free, I think today, for the next
tomorrow, something like that. At the time of this recording, Friday, right?
Is it Friday?
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was the 7th for some reason.
Yeah. 7th at 10 a.m. PT. Yeah.
Hey.
Oh, never mind.
Awesome. Right now, bro.
In about 45 minutes. Yeah.
Dude, I got so many kids. I don't even know what day it is. What am I talking about?
I feel that on a deep level. But yeah, so like tying all these things to like the free weekend and stuff, and having the core gameplay like feel better, I think it's going to be good for New World long term. And it sounds like May or April this month, excuse me, we're going to get another patch like that that's just quality of life stuff, and hopefully they can nail that down and get ready for arenas, which I think is a really big feature.
I want to talk about the obviously free-to-play weekend here just in a second, so kind of put a bullet point that we're going to come back to that in your minds, because I do want to talk about the quality of life and what we can kind of start to see in terms of patch. Do you guys predict that we'll see like a content patch like we saw with 1.5, followed by like a just kind of like a quality of life bug fixes, just kind of addressing that core before we jump back into a content update, like maybe with like if you think April as a bug fix balance, and then as May as a content, that would bring in the 3v3 PvP potentially going into the summer of bug fix content, bug fix content. Do you see that as essentially kind of like a predictable pattern, or do you feel it's still too early to tell like how that kind of ends up edging out with the devs?
Well, go ahead, Danny.
Go. I was going to say, it feels that way at the moment, doesn't it? Because it launched and things were just not working very well across the board, like many things. So it's nice to see the content roadmap and we can see what new content's coming. But I think all of us that are currently playing the game, all we want is nice keep going with the quality of life features. Keep going with the fixing. Make sure that we can have me battles and not lag, which so far seems to be very, very good. But I think you're right. For the time being, content fixes, and that sort of rotation just to even it out. But yeah, sorry, Red.
Well, I'll forgive you this time. The truth is like, you know, I hope they don't have to do that eventually. I hope they can eventually put out patches that are like, all right, the performance is good. There might be like an annoying bug, but something that isn't like game breaking occasionally. Like I think this last time it was like the storage chest in the house. You had to like put them down every time you logged in. That was an annoying bug, but we could still play New World effectively. There were no like games or like bugs that were breaking PvP or wars or anything like that this time around. Hopefully they can get to a cadence where, you know, they're not having to do quality of life fixes every other month and then maybe, you know, get to a more consistent content schedule. But
yeah, I agree. I feel like the quality of life stuff will come to an end at some point. I think there's always a battle fighting bugs, etc., in any MMO that you play. So, and balancing the combat is something that's going to be ongoing no matter what you do. I think the meta is going to shift and change forever. So I think that having some sort of months in there where you do some balance and bug fixes, etc., is needed and will be necessary. But hopefully it won't be like an every month thing. You know, I would much rather see them work on content for a couple of months and have these really big like content pushes without having the need to spend so much time fleshing out bugs and whatever. Like I think what comes to my mind, and we've talked about this a lot, just in general, is like Elder Scrolls Online. I think has a really good method for how they release their content and their update and the cadence in which they do that, and hopefully New World can kind of get to something similar at some point in the future, and that would be really exciting for me, I think.
And yeah, I agree with you. I think ultimately, like, this is a really good thing for them to do right now. But at some point, like, you will, I think, hit like a kind of a, you know, why am I forgetting the development term? It's basically a tech debt, you know, technical debt. There's the term. Some point that it will have been addressed, and then ultimately, I could see them shifting to kind of maybe like every 3 months. That's where the kind of the big content piece happens, and then any kind of minor fixes that need to be addressed between the big content updates, because that also then adds to the hype cycle, which brings us right back to obviously the free-to-play weekend that just kicked off and is starting. Now, before we talk about that, Elizabeth is asking a question in chat saying, in the beginning, people I planned to play and had a hard time running the game, it would crash a lot. Has it gotten any better? And my experiences has been absolutely. I haven't seen any crashes or really any bugs that I feel are like game breaking. You guys, do you feel like the game's a stable place for Elizabeth to come check out and return to?
Much better, isn't it? Much better than what it was. We were watching a war back from November to what it was 2 days ago, and it's like a completely different game. There's still things that are problematic and things do happen, and there's a long way to go, but it's a completely different game to what it was 3-4 months ago. So it's, yeah, try it out, get back in. I'm telling everyone, if you didn't quit for I don't know, a reason to do with just disliking the game in general, jump back in and try it, because a lot has changed since the early days.
It costs nothing to try to
and it's free. Yeah, it's free. Yeah,
like, there's no sub. Like, that's one of the things that I see people like, oh, should I return? It's like if it says you update, just update and log in, see if you like it, because they're not going to ask for money for you to even worry about it. Like, if I wanted to go test 14 out, let's say I stepped away, which would be weird. It's like, so then it's like, yeah, I'd have to resub, and then I would be able to get the update, and then I'd be able to see if it's worth my time. In this case, it's the complete opposite way. But let's talk about the free to play weekend, because I think what we saw with the double XP weekend was awesome. Like, I was like, that is such a really cool thing. I was out of town, I couldn't take part in it. But obviously, we're seeing player numbers return. Free to play weekend. What do you guys have any kind of concerns? Do you think this is kind of foreshadowing New World going into kind of a free to play model, or do you think this is a really great way for them to kind of do this advertising at some point, like at some kind of cadence? Let's go with Red.
I think the game is in a great place right now, so it makes sense to kind of open this up to everyone to give a go. Because a lot of the I think the general conception of the game was in the first month was that maybe it was a little early and they should, anybody that maybe is on the fence about trying out should wait. And so now the game is in a great place. I think it's a good time for anybody who didn't buy the game to try it out, because I've said many a times, I think that this is like the best state that the game's been in. And that's like I played through alpha, beta, and even obviously launch. But one of the problems, or one of the things I think they need to figure out, is bringing back the people that already bought the game, because that's a large player base. I mean, it almost hit like 800 to 900,000 concurrent players at one point, and getting those people to convince to come back is going to be a challenge. And like you said, at least there's no barrier for those people as well. So I think the free weekend is great, but I think convincing those people that already own the game to come back is also going to be.
What does that? What gets those players to come back in your mind?
Good patches like this one, the one that just happened with the new expedition, the weapon, the quality of life stuff. It's you're always competing with people's time, I think, right? The $40 wasn't probably that significant to those people, so they don't feel committed to the game with the $40 purchase. I think convincing them that their time is better spent in New World than in Lost Ark, New World than in like Final Fantasy 14. I think that's the challenge, really, because I mean, like you maybe had mentioned or alluded to, 14 came out with a new expansion, Guild Wars 2 came out with a new expansion. All these games have new content flowing all the time. So competing with those games and bringing those people back into the game and making it worth their time to come back, I think is the main challenge.
Bordy, what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with pretty much everything Red said. I in terms of like the free to play thing, you asked the question of if we think that's like some foreshadowing to go free to play, and I think that's a very interesting topic. If New World ever did go free to play, I feel like it might be pretty good for the game. I think a lot of people would play the game then. Something like a Lost Ark type of model. Obviously, I think Lost Ark is edging on maybe pay to win a little bit, but I think if they could get away from that side of things and be maybe not a little bit, maybe a lot, but I didn't want to go that far, right? I didn't want to go that, but I think if New World just had like cosmetics or something, I think there's a way to make it be free to play that'd be awesome. But I don't know that that's something that's going to happen anytime soon, or at least my prediction is it won't. I think they're just using it as a big marketing tool right now to bring players back. And I love it, man. I think it's amazing because I think right now is an excellent time to bring players back in. I do feel like a lot of players might have left because of a lot of the quality of life stuff, right? Like manage your inventory was awful, dude. Bro, I tilted so much managing my inventory. So then you had awful inventory management on top of a tremendous amount of Azoth that it cost to go manage your inventory. So you didn't really even want to go gather stuff because it would take you forever to go sort out your inventory after you gathered this stuff. Well, now none of that's a problem, right? Like all that is fixed. And so it just feels so much better to play the game. And I think that alone, if players came back now and tried it, I think they would enjoy the game so much more than they did before, just because of these small quality of life updates. So yeah, I agree with Red. Like additional patches like this one, if they can continue to like iterate on the quality of life stuff, we still have like tuning orbs. It's kind of an issue. Some other like guild management system I would love to see into the game, like some quality of life stuff there. So you can manage your guild bank, maybe have some guild housing, some of that cool stuff. If they can get that in and then continue to add content, I do think, a year from now, 6 months from now, we'll be sitting in a much better, much different spot for New World.
What do you think, Danny?
I absolutely agree. I think we spoke about it probably a couple of weeks ago, maybe more, when the leaderboards and the roadmap came out. We were speaking about just bringing some fun to the game, leaderboards within companies, just, who's caught the most fish this week, just silly things that will just be fun. And I think I think leaderboards will be a huge thing. But with the free to play, it's a difficult one really, because the main thing for me really would be to go out and say to people that I've met on stream or whatever who haven't even played the game yet, come and we'll play together, come and join our server. But maybe it's too soon because a lot of the servers are locked. We can't transfer off them. I know that they're supposed to be doing merges after it, so I think this may be a bit of a toe in the water for them, testing it out to see how many people who haven't got the game yet will try it out and don't want to pay the money because of the negativity it's had in the past, and just jump on in and test it. But potentially a bit too early if we can't transfer servers manually yet. But it's going to be good to see. It's going to be really awesome to see how many people actually jump in for the first time and haven't played it yet. And hopefully we don't see loads of bots running around with all these free accounts.
Yeah, absolutely. And the bots are back.
Yeah.
I think the free option I think is really good, because one of the things I find is that obviously like at a $40 barrier, I personally enjoy that. I don't hope that the game goes free, because if it does, then you have to kind of find a way to like have other people cover that initial kind of entry. Whether I believe the buy to play option puts us all in the same playing field, right? Like, oh, okay, we all have inventory, we all have access to every, like you buy the game, you can play the game, and there's no sub, which that's something I'm going to talk to you guys about here in a couple of minutes, especially about MTX, the fears that were presented last year, and here we are a year later, and it's like seems to be okay so far. Like we'll have to talk about it here in a second, but when it comes down to it, the ability to test if your opinion matches with what the negative you've heard, right? So obviously, like, from an influencing perspective, content creation perspective, an era of, cheering on the downfall of the game and saying how bad it is. This actually weekend opens up the ability for everybody to go test it without putting money down on the table and deciding for themselves if it ends up aligning with the negative that they've heard, versus like, oh, this is actually either really good or maybe they don't even jive with it. And then my always opinion is like, at least you tried it. Like New World isn't going to be a game that everybody's going to say, oh, this is the one game everybody should play, but no game is. So it's like, I always say you should try it. See if you like it for yourself, rather than take my word for it. Cause like, obviously, like I'm a fan. So it's like,
a lot of things have changed. A lot of things have changed since we leveled up as well. I think they've been working heavily on the user experience for the first time user experience, which I can't comment on because I'm scared to go back and do it all again. I don't want to do it again.
If you look to Damone Kim, like if you guys follow like his content, like
Zion Man, yeah.
Well, he also he did it again. He leveled up another character, and then he was able to share that experience, and he did it in 2 days. Like obviously, fantastic. Like that was a massive playtime, but I was like, that's still like really cool to see people go back and do that. One of the things that I would love to get y'all's kind of read on, because I feel like from a communications perspective, I feel like Amazon continues to get better and better at that. And one of the reasons why I think that, especially with what Elizabeth's chatting about, saying being able to swap servers from one coast to the other, the complaints that people leverage about the game that I hear personally have already been also addressed. They might not be fixed in the game, like the orbs, which you guys brought up, but also with regional transfers, that they've addressed them in some way, so that, as in my case, I can always say, yeah, they're working on that, as opposed to like, oh, we don't even know. I feel overly communicated to, especially with the monthly dev drops. How do you guys feel about that? Like, do you feel like are there lingering questions that you haven't heard Amazon talk about, or where do you think Amazon can improve? We'll start with let's start with BDLG and go around the horn.
Yeah, man, I think their communication is pretty good. People all the time say that they don't communicate to the players, and I highly disagree, man. I think if you're looking in the right spots, it's there. I think sometimes the communication is kind of scattered a little bit, because they have on the forums, they have like this dev post section, which they just posted an amazing article about the desync and the lag out there, but you have to kind of go find it and look for it. So I think maybe that's where the disconnect comes from, is like people don't know where to look for the communications. But in my opinion, man, they've done an excellent job communicating. Those dev videos they do, I don't know what more you would want them to address in those. I know they kind of record them and then release them maybe a week or so later. So some of the information in there we might have already known or heard or whatever, but they address them directly, and they're not shy at all about saying things like, yeah, we screwed this up, we're fixing it, or yeah, this sounded fantastic on paper, but in practice it's not working out how we intended, so now we're fixing it. Those types of things to me show a lot. I get a lot of joy out of hearing them say those things, and I think they're doing a really good job at communication. I'm not sure as players what more we could ask for, really. I think they're about as transparent as they can be. I think sometimes maybe there's things that they maybe don't address and that slips through the cracks, but I don't think it's from them like not wanting to address it. I think it may just be something they just missed, maybe, which is going to happen. So I think they're doing fine in that area.
What do you think, Danny?
Yeah. So compared to other games, they do so much more than other games that I've played. Sometimes you don't hear anything for months. They are really on top of it. And I've had the chance. I think Red and BLG has also had a chance to throw some questions their way. And there was one video actually where they asked like four of my questions, and some of them were pretty brutal. I really laid into the PvP missions, and I basically told them that they're crap and like, what are you going to do about it? And the guy was like, they're actually all right. So it's kind of, they asked the tough questions. They listened to us as a community, and a lot of my chat, we like to think we're into the PvP, and they listen and they respond, and they do seem to really care. I think we just have high expectations, to be honest, to get things done quicker. So, there's things that you see in other games that we haven't even. There's no news on in New World, and I think BDOG touched on it earlier. Guild stuff. The whole game is focused around these companies, and it's really basic. And I think people want to see, some stuff that's kind of should be standard in other games in here. And I think that's maybe where people are confusing communication with actually what might come out in the future. I'm not sure, but in terms of kind of communication wise, they do a great job. They really do a great job. I couldn't fault it at all.
What do you think, Red?
Well, one of the things that's just kind of interesting to me is because, well, most of us, I think in this chat especially, have played MMOs for a very long time. And one of the ones that probably we've all played, or at least at some point, is World of Warcraft. And how, like, you would go, like, literal months without anything. Like, sometimes a year without hearing anything from the communication from New World, especially. I don't know how it could be better other than to, like, have, like, a live stream up in their office, like, at 24/7. And just watch us, watch work. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know what people are expecting, but I feel like they're extremely transparent. One of the things that I think went a long ways, I think we spoke about this before the show or in the pre-show, but is there roadmap. That is the best way to communicate with players who don't catch the live streams or don't check the website every like week or day or whatever, is just having that roadmap up to link around the community and to show people like, this is what's coming up in the fall, in the spring, next month, et cetera, et cetera. I think that level of communication was something they were lacking on a little bit, and now that they have it out there, I think it's going to go a long ways.
The communication, especially as it relates to the development of trust, like you mentioned, WoW, and them, taking as long as they needed, like, oh, it's been so much, but there was an element of trust that basically the players is like, yeah, I know stuff's coming to the game. And so at that core, same thing kind of when we look at, and I see the conversation that people leverage into the CCU, the concurrent users. Like, concurrent users is overvalued in MMOs, especially new MMOs, namely because it's a placeholder for trust. Like, you don't know if the game will continue to be around because players have been burned. And so I always kind of say, like, the reason why you feel like it's as important or you're not feeling communicated to is because you don't really trust the messages that you're receiving, because it's easy to talk. But I think what Amazon's been showing is that they're actually delivering on that trust, and they're actually responding to the feedback, and they're not, saying no. They're giving answers as to why they made the decisions that they've made, and that just takes time to build up. And one of the things that I think, like, even with the roadmap, I hope that it's a under promise, over deliver roadmap, because people are like, oh, this is not on the roadmap, but we know they've talked about it. And it ends up being that it might not have a place to when it comes in. But I think it's over the fact is that the roadmap is what we know we can absolutely deliver on, because when you put one out, now the thing that they have to do is make sure they deliver on that roadmap, so that players actually then say, oh, when they say they're going to do something, they're going to do it. And if I have to wait 3 months or 6 months for that thing to happen, at least they've addressed it. I understand, and I can expect when it will come, and then it comes. So that, if you feel like you're just like, I got to take a break, okay, I want to check back in 6 months. It's seeding that level of like, okay, we've said it, we've done it, and then we say it again, and we just continue to repeat and redo that. Now, Joe asked an interesting question because I have a very strong opinion about what he's writing, because we know that a group finder system is coming. We don't know much more other than that, as that was on the roadmap. But he says, I wish that they would add a matchmaking system for dungeons similar to WoW, so I don't have to spam chat or to find a group for an hour. What do you guys think? Matchmaking? Is that what they're talking about with the party finder system, or is that some kind of listing? What do you think?
Yeah, that's exactly what they're talking about. They've mentioned it before, I believe, in one of the live streams, that they are working on some sort of matchmaking system for dungeons and stuff. They also mentioned the alteration, I think, in the same conversation, to the orbs, the tuning orbs, and separating the actual ability to do the expedition from the orb itself, and kind of making the orb like just increase the amount of rewards you get, I think. I believe that was at the same time. So yeah, they are working on that for sure. I don't remember if it was on the roadmap or not, but they did say that is something they're working on. And then also summer. Yeah. And then they also, and this is maybe what I'm thinking about not being on the roadmap, he also did mention ways to play with other people on other servers as well. So, and that's, I think that matchmaking doesn't matter unless you get that in the game.
You have to have the cross server aspect. Otherwise then your server is even more important. When you add cross server matchmaking, especially let's say OPR, like just talking about one of the modes that would massively benefit from it, like then all of a sudden a low pop server actually has a lot of value to a player who maybe wants to gather a little bit more on the world and be able to do certain things that they're not going to have too much as much competition, but they're not penalized for that, for a lower pop server from something maybe they want to participate in. And as we get more Gabe modes, I think that's absolutely critical. But the developer in me, the engineer in me, is like, that's a while away. Like it's, it is critical, but like
it's a long way.
Yeah, like when a developer tells me a long way away, I think immediately 12 months minimum. When somebody says it's coming soon, I think 6 months. It's like, oh, soon is 6 months in development world. It could be even 18, but yeah, if you think it's sooner.
Part of the podcast. Don't say that. Don't say that, Brian.
I'm just speaking as a software engineer who like works in the industry. Like I translate certain words to represent time frame. If they come in sooner, albeit like hopefully the idea is that they started working on that a while ago, and so that it ends up being it was a big task. It was a what's called an epic user story. That kind of constitutes all these little things, but that will be huge. What do you guys think about matchmaking? We did Red, Danny, BDLG. Floor is yours.
I was going to say, like, these things must be being built since the change, right? So it was originally that survival game. You don't need a group finder or half the stuff we have now in the game that it was. So it's kind of impressive on one foot that they're building all this stuff, and Scott's kind of saying that we don't have it because it wasn't part of the original plan. So a lot of these things are being built when the feedback's coming in and the decisions are being made and stuff. So I don't know how long ago it was when they thought about removing the orbs and adding the group finder and things. So I have no idea. You obviously clearly have more knowledge, but it's a cool system that they're bringing in. It's just scary to think that it's all being built pretty much from scratch, from a lot of feedback and a lot of changes. And they were really adamant on the orbs for a long time. Like, no, the orbs are staying. And until it was just, no, we don't want it. We don't want it. We don't want it. We don't want it. And things start to change. But these weren't in the original plan.
It will have an impact on the world and things like that. Because you could end up seeing easily people just kind of idling in town, popping in and out of visibility as they go and queue for content, etc. So it will have a fundamental impact on how the world and everything interacts, and that's something they need to consider from a game design perspective, right? Like, if all of the content is instanced, what makes New World different from any other MMO instance simulator that we've seen in the last 10 years? BDLG, I want to go to you, and then I want to address Elizabeth's comment.
Yeah, so in the beginning of this game, whenever it was supposed to be like a more survival-based game, I was highly against any kind of group finder, etc., or really any instance content at all. But whenever they added these instance dungeons, and after playing the game for a long time, I feel like a group finder is something that will kind of enhance the gameplay and make people enjoy it. It's one of those things where I was hoping they were going to be a little bit different in some areas, but now it's pretty clear that it's just headed down the pretty it's headed down more of a traditional MMO path. And I feel like adding a group finder now will enhance the gameplay because right now it's frustrating to try to find groups, and that doesn't really enhance my gameplay. As an MMO player, as someone, I always take the perspective of if I was still like working full time as a CPA and I came home and I had like 2 hours to play tonight, and I spent my 2 hours looking for a group and I was never able to run that dungeon versus being able to pull up a group finder, log in, do my couple dungeons and get out, I would be much more likely to log in and play that game every single night if I could do those things versus not being able to do those things. So I think whenever you log into an MMO, you want that experience. You want to be able to log in, do the things you have time to do and want to do in the game versus logging in and spending your time like trying to search and do that. Like that's just a frustrating gameplay experience. So I think adding the group finder is critical. And also to your point about like the roadmap where you said or under promise, over delivered. I think there is a world in which that might happen. But I think there's a world in which they are working on a lot of the behind the scenes things like removing tuning orbs, adding these crossover transfers. And those things may come in earlier than we think, maybe summer, because it doesn't make a lot of sense to add these group finders without having like crossover queues, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they will. But I feel like those things aren't on the roadmap. And I feel like those are also huge, huge things that's going to change the landscape of the game that just aren't on the roadmap. So I feel like there may be a world in which that roadmap is just this big 10,000 foot view. And we're going to get a lot of other little things within there that's going to change the game drastically. So yeah, that's my opinion on the group finder, man. I feel like you have a little bit of a different opinion though here, Brian. What's the opinion?
It ends up being, it's that I always kind of look at cost, right? Like what is the cost? And typically when I hear matchmaking discussed, I don't ever hear it paired with, are we willing to sacrifice certain things to have that function? And so this is like, whether it exists or it doesn't exist, like that's a function of the community. I'm not here to change anybody's mind, but like matchmaking is kind of a boiling pot for toxicity in PvE content where player choice matters.
No.
So Matt, when you get matched with somebody and they're like running like, oh, you have no armor, and like there's certain rules that end up having to be applied to reduce and cut down toxicity. Same thing with the level design itself. So ultimately, because you have no predisposed investment on going into the content and kind of, hey, we're all going to do this and this is what we're doing. And now we're stepping into the content. Content has to, there is a chance that content gets adjusted to basically the lowest common denominator. I'm here. I don't care about you assholes because like the game matched me with you guys. Lucky for you. It's not always, this isn't a one-to-one case, but like when it comes to player, choice, the freedom to pick your two weapons and to take your perks and take your stats, you can end up easily having a recipe for players just going in and not being able to clear the content. And then to, BDL, Bordy's point, like, okay, yeah, you had your 2 hours and you kept getting matched with people who just were awful, were just the worst. Like you couldn't even clear the content. That doesn't feel good either. So they're like, it can end up being on the other end of it. And it's just a risk that matchmaking takes into account. That's players like, I like how some cultures do it where you only do matchmaking if you've actually already cleared the content. If you haven't, you always do a static. You have to still shout and find your group, but that's a cultural thing. And usually within the North Americas, or at least within Western society, I haven't seen that mindset being used with matchmaking activity. In my experience. What do you guys think about that?
I was going to say they may bring the gear score average. I think as on a war board now, if you mouse over a player who signed up to your war, you can see their average gear score. Mm-hmm. So potentially there'll be something similar to that. So you can see maybe your party before you go in, something similar like Lost Ark, where you can get an idea of what they're running beforehand. So you can be like, nah. Yeah. I'm not doing this if they're really, really low, and potentially this will be very helpful for the lower level dungeons because there's not many people running them at the moment, and people coming into the game for the first time weren't able to do the depths or Starstone because there's no one doing them anymore. Maybe this will help if it's
It's gonna help.
There.
Like your example, Bordy. Like, I'm not a full-time content creator. This is just something I do, and I honestly don't want to be full-time because I feel it gives me the freedom to really speak my mind, and I piss people off. Apparently, Asmund actually reacted to one of my videos, and somebody in chat was saying that I'm a clown. I'm like, that's actually really high praise. Like, I will wear that badge with pride because, like, I don't want to be beholden to an algorithm for my livelihood. But on that, on that aspect, like, I identify with that working person. Like, it makes it easy to jump in. But then I look at the games that generally have it, and in my mind, I look at ESO and I look at Final Fantasy 14. 14, it's great. I jump into the dungeon, but it's a hallway. Like, there aren't multiple paths. The reason is because people aren't there to explore the dungeon. They're there to achieve the goal and get the reward and go on with their lives. And also within the like, every red mage is a red mage, every white mage is a white mage. There isn't really a player, impact on how my build is set up. It's just a matter of my gear score, and that just simplifies the process, making it streamlined, making it easy for me to jump in and do a dungeon as easy as possible. I love that easiness experience, but I love in New World my ability that, like, my build is my build. Like, it is legitimately what I choose that I feel works better for my play style. Screw your meta. Like, if you feel like I'm not optimal, sucks to suck. I'm not impacting your gameplay. And matchmaking, you might get paired with me, and either I'm great or I'm awful. Like, maybe, like, I'm going to have either an experience that doesn't give you a negative taste or a negative taste, and that's going to bleed out easily more on social media because people share negative takes and negative, that kind of reaction more and more. And so, like, it will be paired with, hey, nice community, toxic, New World community. And that's just, there's nothing to avoid it. Like, I think this is adding it in is the right call, especially for players who have been trained in that, because there's nothing competing like this. Like, when you come in your example, Bordy, like, you got 2 hours and you're like, why would I spend 2 hours trying to get a group when I can go over here and I can do all this content, right? Like, the New World doesn't exist in a bubble. So unless you're absolutely in love and you want to be here for 2 hours just to try to do a dungeon, you're going to go just play whatever gets you into the game the quickest. And so I concede, but at the same time, the software engineer and the game design, mindset in mind, I go, well, what do we sacrifice anything? And we don't have to. ESO just says good luck. And when I hear about people's matchmaking experiences in ESO, I have yet to hear a positive one. But that's just my my bubble. Any thoughts? Any follow up before we move on our next topic?
Yeah, I think that is like a group content problem, not necessarily like a group finder problem. I think generally, because right now I've been in, you have to find groups manually. You can't always fill the group with people So, okay, you do occasionally like hop into a random group if you're looking for an expedition, and you still have the same problems. You know what I mean? People want you to link your weapons. People want you to, if you come in with a musket, which, let's chat. I hate to break anybody's musket bubble here, but it's a terrible DPS weapon for PvE. If people come in there with a musket, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, people still get negative, experiences through coming in through that, like those builds that you're talking about. I think that just generally forms when you get people together that are trying to complete a goal or a task in a game, and that one person or two people in your group are negatively affecting your experience. You know what I mean? I think people's nature, being keyboard warriors like most of us are, they're so likely to be like, dude, you suck, in chat, no matter what what the actual like way they got in the group was. But one of the things I've noticed is the difficulty of content that you put the group finder in. I think that's like the more important thing. Like, the regular expeditions are pretty easy at this point. I think most people can get through them. Putting people in a group finder in that sort of situation, I think is relatively risk-free, because most people, like, now, I think most people can carry through one or two people through those expeditions. So even if you get a bad person, it's not going to generally affect your outcome there. But mutations, stuff like that. I do feel like even like the 3v3 arena, I think maybe we should consider maybe holding back the matchmaking on those sort of activities. Because, I think those sort of activities are the ones that like they're very challenging. There's a lot of stress or, whatever involved with them. And everybody's gameplay is extremely important. So I do believe like most games like have like a raid system or something that doesn't have matchmaking, that are like the higher tier of difficulty or whatever.
From a content creator perspective, I think that also having a matchmaking system does open up unique opportunities for like y'all's live stream to be like, hey, we're running, with players, hop on in and, and play with us, especially if you're like, hey, you're having a bad matchmaking experience. Let us be the good match, let us be that aspect. And so there's kind of a value. I see that happen, especially in high-end content within the MMO content creation and streaming space as a real like net positive, to kind of grow on. Now, we've seen the roadmap. All of us, I think, are generally really excited by what they've, kind of laid out. Great Sword, I think, coming in the fall, and them announcing that as kind of a commitment was a real big, exciting thing for me personally. Not only the new zone, but and I listen to y'all's podcast talking about like, is that going to be a zone that you fight for control over, or should that be, whatever, what kind of zone? So I'm really kind of curious to see, if what it is in that regards. But is there anything missing from the roadmap, or is there anything not on this roadmap that you feel would actually add a huge amount of value, in the next 6 to 9 months to this game? And if so, what is that? And Red is kind of making a face and nodding. So let's start with him.
So the one I always mention is like raids, like a large group, highly like coordinated, experience, like 8-man or whatever they want to do. I think is like one that just like is obvious, but also I think company support. The game completely is like involved or completely is surrounded by the need for companies, like territory ownership and everything like that. Having like a bank, having like maybe even company housing, stuff like that, I think would go a long ways in the game, because right now there's just like minimal support to such a massive system, such as like companies. So I think that I would have liked to see some hint at some sort of increased company support within the game. I think that would have been good.
Danny, what about you?
I got a big wish list. I do. This includes like pirate ships and Vikings and all this swimming, all
you
this
list
great
a feature, and I'll list what I would basically quote out to have that delivered, and we can.
Oh,
just
Brian,
rack
stop! No, don't do that.
It's cost.
We don't want to hear it.
Like Danny just spent $7 million.
We want it now, and we don't care.
No,
so it's Amazon's money. Who gives a crap?
Yeah. Jeff Bezos went to space, Brian. We don't need.
We could get pirate ships, Dad.
Come on. No, I think following what Red said, some good guild support would be really nice, or company support. I would really love to. What I really wanted to see was some cool open world events, stuff that really brings people together. Just truly glorious. But every time we talk about it, it's like, can the servers hold this, that, and the other? I can see that they're bringing back Turkulon, which is an open world event. Mm-hmm. But I was completely disappointed by, I was expecting this epic corrupted beast of some sort, which would bring hundreds of people together, and I got a giant turkey, so I was kind of disappointed to be honest. But I think Danny,
admit, when you saw that flaming egg poop out of the giant chicken's butt, or turkey, sorry, I don't want to offend any foul. Turkey's butt. Admit that you laughed. You had a good chuckle.
It was funny. It is funny. It is funny. Yeah. No. So for me, I definitely wanted some more emphasis on open world, which again went back to kind of PvP. So declaring wars at the moment for me is just not. It's not the way it should be. There should be more PvP involved, and there should be, But what I'm after is more open world content. And at the launch of the game, all these ambushes that you would see, people hiding in bushes and alligators, and just the madness that happened in open world was amazing. And it's disappeared, and there doesn't seem to be any need or want to bring that back. So for me, I really wanted some open world bosses, open world events that just brought people together. And I love
the open world. Like we've been leveling weapons in the open world, and it feels
beautiful.
Good. Like
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. It feels like I feel so connected and feel so like engaged that I agree with you on the open world side of things. But I would say is that you also then like mentally need to think of what incentive is there, because you can open world PvP. The reason you don't is trying to address that issue. And how do you, from a game design perspective, sit here and say, well, how do we get people to partake in something that they say that they want? And it ends up being that the incentive to do so is either being outweighed by, I don't think there's really an incentive to do so. So that means like any incentive in any piece of the content, makes more sense. It's more valuable for me to go and queue an OPR. Makes sense, right? Like that's going to outrank, open world PvP. What do we do? Like, how do we bring that into a value driven proposition so that people who want to do it feel like their time is valued? And I think that's kind of a key aspect. Yeah. Any thoughts, Danny, before we go to boarding?
Yeah. I think they're starting to do it. They got raffle bones in there, which if you find them and you kill him, you start to get some loot. And they're starting to introduce these parts to the game, which may lead to something bigger down the line once they've kind of sorted out the desync, the server lag, and the big issues with players.
Some of that feels like they've solved a lot of that, like with the last
happening.
Update. Yeah,
we there were some wars happening a couple of days ago. When the wars finished, there was beaches full of people fighting, 100, 200, 300 people, and in your pocket of a fight, it felt good, and you could see the fights in the distance, but you just didn't get all the spells and the skills, and it was working amazing. So I think it could come, and my last thing that I really want is atmosphere in the towns. So the tavern needs to have a little band in it, and it needs to just have some some drinking and just some fun and
like some kind of card game in there in that tavern.
Wait, your server doesn't have bands? We have
you got bands?
We have some guy blasting Drake.
I've seen some epic rap battles happen in New World
every day.
Yeah. I think they missed the trick with the kind of open world, and I'm sad to not see any more love for wars on there and war declarations. But there's some really cool stuff on the content roadmap, and maybe these bits will be kind of intertwined in what's coming out. So I hold my hopes up, but we'll see.
Morty, how about you? What's missing from your roadmap?
So I'm gonna steal a couple from both Red and Danny. The guild thing I think is a huge one, and I wish that was on the roadmap. And maybe we will see something about it, and it's just not on there. That's a big quality of life thing that I'd like to see addressed, because Red's right. Like the game depends on guilds a lot in a lot of different situations, and not being able to manage your guild funds or have a good place to like store your guild stuff. There's a lot of times where I'll go out and I'll get these recipes. I just have recipes on recipes stacked. They sell for like 10 gold on the marketplace, so it's not like a big deal, but it'd be nice to just be able to shove those into a guild bank somewhere so that lower level people or new recruits or somebody just joining the game could use them and then get some use out of them. Just stuff like that would be nice to have. And then to Danny's point about open world PvP, that's something that is on my wish list for sure. I feel like right now pushing territory is one of the most boring things to do in the game. If you can get some good open world PvP, it becomes really fun. But there are so many times where you're out there just doing these missions mindlessly. They're so far, you have to run so far across the map to do them. And it is so god awful boring, man. I despise pushing territory. I hate it, man. It is the most boring thing to do in the game for me. And it's unfortunate because that's how you have to declare war, right? So if your company wants to own territory, well, you're forced to go push at least 10%. And it's just, oh man, I hate it, dude. So that's one of the things I'd like to see them address. I feel like the whole territory control system is a little bonk right now, the way it works. And I would like to see that kind of reworked. So I was a little disappointed not to see something like that on there. But maybe they think it works fine right now. I don't know. But I think wars, territory control, and all that sounded great on paper. So that's another one of those things. It sounds great on paper. In practice, I just don't think it's working out very well. So I'd like to see something done there. That's probably my biggest one.
Yeah, I want to echo like what you guys said. Like there's so many like really good ideas here. I think for me, the two things that I would adore in addition to what you guys have highlighted is that as somebody who like isn't pushing for territory, but just generally runs like what I would consider kind of a small casual company. And that's why I always kind of say, like, if you guys are looking for somebody cool to hang out with, like that's what we're here to be. If you guys want to get sweaty, like, like absolutely go check out like some of these other guys. But like one of the things that, like I really enjoy about New World is just how relaxing it is. Like I just feel like at home in a weird way. Like I just like, all right, this is very peaceful and I can get sweaty and I jump into PvP, but like generally speaking, like I don't feel like if I'm not efficient and I'm not doing check mark A, B, C, D, that I'm missing out. Like, and I really appreciate that about the game. I don't want that to change, but I'd love to see some incentive on the smaller company side. If you want to make money, like controlling a land, controlling a zone is a great way, but there's no subtle way for us to make money as a company unless people donate to the cause. And I hate asking for that. I'd rather it just be an automatic system of, oh, you sold something off the market, your small company takes a very small, fee for that, for that. So it just kind of slowly trickles in so that all of a sudden, if we decided to try and declare war, that the war chest is ready to go. And like you guys have said, with obviously company housing and banking and things like that, to be able to have an impact that we can feel. Because right now it's just a chat room, in that regard. So I'd love to see that, but also with the idea that, like looking at the range of different play styles within the companies that exist. For me, though, like the thing that will make me more like owners probably play this game to a dangerous amount where, Brian, you might need to take, interventions like your banners are held is this. And this is what I want it so bad. I want XP to mean something at level 60. One of the things that I saw, when people came into the game and they're all like rushing to 60, I'm like, why would you do that? Like, I don't understand the rush to 60. I've always viewed New World and even Final Fantasy 11 as the end game begins at level 1. Like anything I'm doing has value, especially with a player-driven economy. And people rush to 60, but what that does is that all of a sudden the methods that they do become less valuable. So town boards less valuable, quests less valuable, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm sitting here going like, how awesome for me would it be is that I don't need to level to 61, but imagine if there was just some kind of little chest that you got every time you got a level's worth of experience at level 60, that they just, hey, thanks for playing the game. Thanks for getting that experience. I don't need it to be efficient in terms of progression. I don't need it to be anything. I just need that bar to fill up because that's my addiction. That's my problem. I'm here to, what is it? XP Anonymous, XPA. That's my problem. But I would love that because when I look at the daily stashes and things like that, I get joy out of it. I would love to go turn in these quests. I'd love to go kind of fill up that bar and just get another chest of something. Whether it's worthwhile or not, just having that as a core system, all of a sudden takes all these quests, town boards, things like that, and continues to keep them somewhat relevant, for the discussion. But that's the thing that I want to see. I haven't seen much talk about it, but when they talked about the double XP weekend, I put a feedback on the forums. I was like, it'd be great if at 60 XP did something. I don't need it to hit me a level 61. I don't need power from it, but give it back, because you can level to 60 by fishing. You can level to 60 by fishing, and then all of a sudden 60, it's like, okay, we're taking that whole static progression away. Any thoughts on post level cap experience?
Yeah, aptitude chest for player experience would be great.
I love
Something
it. I love
like that. Yeah, I think that would be easy enough to implement, wouldn't it? I mean, Brian, I don't know. Is that?
Yeah. It all depends also on their future framework too. Like if they were like, okay, we're planning on something else, then who knows? But the fact that they implemented the aptitude chest, I was like, all right, where's the XP aptitude? Come on. Same thing with weapons too. So to jump in to get defeated, it's like imagine getting a specified orb or gypsum expertise increase for post 20 leveling your weapon. Just like, hey, you got another, instead of hitting 21, now you're actually farming up weapon expertise, for that weapon that you continue to use. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. What happens if they increase the level cap though?
Oh, I think essentially nothing. Because again, you're not getting power. So it literally is like, okay, XP go, level cap is up. All right, cool. Now once you hit 70, then the aptitude comes back. Same thing if they ever decided to raise the aptitude to 300. Your aptitude grind goes away, and then you're back on that grind, and then once you hit the cap, then all of a sudden you shift back into that system. I personally hope that we never see a level cap increase. I think in the long run that only ends up hurting. That becomes a problem in 10 years, right? But I think you go and focus in on horizontal content more than anything, and people will love it. Okay, cool. But that's just my bias. Go ahead, BDL.
Yeah, I hope we never see a trade skill level increase for sure. I'm almost done with all of those, and I'd be real triggered if a month from now they said, "Yo, guys, now it's 250." I would tilt,
day
bro.
you hit it, the day you hit it, let's just raise that to
another
300.
100 in fishing. Let's go.
All I have left right now is fishing. I've been fishing during this whole time. I'm trying to max fishing. Once it's done, I'm done. And if they increase cap, bro, you're gonna see a very angry, bald, eyebrowless man. I'm gonna be very tilted.
Danny or Red, you got any thoughts on that?
Go for it, Red.
Well, the thing about having those systems in place is they're a great way to kind of, I think, fill the void in like a system or an economy like New World has. One of the things that like feels not so great right now is crafting. How much it takes to get a good piece of armor or a piece of weapon is just like, it's insane. I mean, you have to play the game, an infinite amount of time to get like a good, like a best in slot or whatever you would call it, armor set. So using like you said, like a progressive leveling system that allows like aptitude through experience gain could reward players with, maybe just a random loot box of gear or, crafting material or whatever they want to do. I mean, really, you could just put whatever you want in there. And like you said, it just gives players a reason to go out and play the game. I mean, most systems, I think, at this point have an aptitude, like the way you would gain XP. Most of them have aptitude, except for like questing and like dungeons and, those sort of things. So hopefully they can figure that out, because I agree that it would, like, why not do it at this point? Because they've literally instituted in every other metric in the game. So
yeah, absolutely. That's where I'm just kind of hoping every update that they sit down, I'm like, oh man, please tell me. I'll need to record it if they ever say it. I'll hopefully be on camera when it's like, if they ever say it, and be like, yeah. Oh man,
it's one of those things for me that I can see Kippy mentioned there about Guild Wars 2. It doesn't bother me so much, but I was just having this flashback of doing like Prestige in Call of Duty when that first came out, and redoing your levels again. For me, it doesn't matter too much as long as there's content alongside it, to go horizontally rather than. But it would just be one of those things that's really nice. After you play for 20 hours or something, you just get an extra box of Umbral shards, and I'm not a big expedition mutation guy. I don't really do them at all, so I'm getting all my Umbrals through dailies or OPR and things like that. So that'll just be something nice on top of it, so you don't have to go down a route that they force you to go down. You can kind of choose your own path, and that'll just be an addition to that. So it's a big roll.
I think overall, like, obviously, like, we're fans, but this is in and of itself like a really, really good time for the game. Like, honestly, this is a really good set point to see them turn back on kind of the marketing arm, to see them to see positive on Reddit. Like, that in my mind, I was like, okay, like, I'm not crazy. Like, there's something here. There's definitely something. And I feel like one of the things they did even at the start, despite their issues, was they did the hardest thing in gaming, which is actually to create a fun game. Like, that is the hardest thing. And then it's about refining it, cleaning up some of the things that, like, you thought that aren't really working. Like you said, this is a great idea on paper, but in practice, because of how people play games, like, it isn't working in the way that we wanted it. How do we address that? How do we bring in that and kind of refine that fun, removing that friction as a term that the dev Scott has continued to use. Like, we're just trying to find the friction and remove it so that overall you're having a fun time with our game. I think one of the things that, like, within AGS, and I would love to know, yes, this kind of a final thought before we wrap up the show. AGS is also already working on another MMO, if not another MMO. Like, they could potentially have maybe even 2 more games that are MMO based in the pipeline. I feel like New World in and of itself is both a great testing ground, but also a great proving ground in terms of trust. If they continue to develop and say, hey, even if we get it wrong, or even if we struggle, the game's still around. And that's going to be something very powerful for the future games that they release. So I find it to be very like a very big tentpole term of release that they have. And that's one of the things I feel people discount it. Do you guys have any thought? It doesn't matter. That's just the general thought that I'm seeing as kind of a final thought for the show. I'll start with Danny.
I think there's been some changes in the Amazon camp as well. I think was it the head stepped down and he's kind of focusing on other things in life, and there'll be different opinions and different bodies coming through. So I'm not sure where the future will be, but I think if they can keep developing New World and it continues to go in the direction it's going from this batch, things could be good. I guess like we're always worrying whenever we're streaming, whenever we're chatting about it, it's always if the game keeps declining in players, although it's not the be all and end all as we discussed earlier, if there's no player base, they're not going to fund it and they're not going to keep developing it, which means it's kind of game over really. And then what's next? But if they can keep going the way they are, I think it would be amazing to see what they can bring out next. If they can bring out something similar or something improved from what they've learned at New World and learned in Lost Ark, and bring features from all of these games and just make it the big MMO. But I think New World's still got that chance to potentially be that if they keep going the way they are. Let's look forward 2 years time. It's a long way away and maybe not many people will be playing it then, but it could still hold its own. I think it'll be brilliant, especially with the combat. Combat's very different from what most of us are used to in an MMO. So I'm excited to see where it goes, especially, fast forward 12 months, fast forward 18 months. It'd be exciting. I think it'd be amazing.
Red?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I'm a big fan of New World, and I kind of share the same sentiment as Danny. I would like to see them continue to push forward, in the New World department. And I guess there is no false limit of material or time that they can spend on developing other MMOs, because they can obviously create a new team or whatever. But, Amazon, to me, New World is like the one thing that they have have to get right before they expand into other games. Lost Ark, they brought over a product that was already done, has already been developed for 4 years. I can't really anyways, it's hard for me to say that Lost Ark was a success on their part, because really that game has been out, it's been proven in the East. They didn't do anything other than help bring it to the West. So
it struggled though, like with every MMO, even with Lost Ark, that the first couple years were
right.
It was every MMO. Like, hey, the first couple years are the hardest part of it.
Exactly. So. And that's the thing is it's hard to remind people, or it's, I try to remind people and it doesn't work, by the way, that the game has been out for 4 years. It's already been through its rough patch. And the reason you enjoy it so much is because it has 4 years of content to enjoy all at once. And I think the key is getting Lost Ark. If you really want to establish yourself as a a Square Enix or a Blizzard or something like that, you really do have to have a long-term successful game. And I really do think, as much as I love the game, as much as we all love the game, the verdict is still out on New World. They really still have some things to prove in that space before I could say there was a time in my life where if Blizzard put out a game, I was going to play the game. Right. I didn't care what the game was about. I didn't care, if it was a first-person shooter like Overwatch, or if it was a card game like Hearthstone. I played those games because I trusted Blizzard and the quality they put out. And I think Amazon Gaming Studios has a long ways to go before they reach that status, in my mind.
40.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Red, for sure. I think that you're spot on, though, Brian, when you say that New World is kind of a proving ground for them as a studio. They've had a lot of failures, man. There's a lot of games they've tried to pump out that just haven't went their way. I mean, Crucible is probably, I guess, maybe one of the bigger ones. They had some other games that were a little bit smaller before then that didn't work out as well. So I've heard the sentiment from I don't know if it's from them or some interviews or something. I can't remember where I've seen this, but I've seen them say before that they really do have a desire to break into the gaming space in a big way. They want to do that, and it's pretty obvious the amount of money and time and effort they're pumping into it. So I don't think they're going anywhere for a very long time as a studio. I think they're just trying to find their way and figure things out. And that to me gets me excited for New World, because I do think New World is like the the opening they've been waiting for. It had such a good launch.
Yeah.
Hasn't been received very well since, but now I feel like the tide's starting to shift a little bit, and it's starting to get to kind of be back on the come up a little bit. Just like most MMOs that we see released, it's the same trend we've seen. And if they can continue to push New World in a good direction, I think whenever they do release the next MMO they're working on, because I think they are with what's his name, Smedley. I think he's working on an MMO behind the scenes. So rumors are it's like a space-based MMO or something like that. I think I could be wrong there, but something in that vein.
Yes.
So if they are able to nail New World, that will give them a lot of credibility, a lot of reputation, so that whenever that game launches, I think their sales will be a lot better. So I think you're spot on there, dude. I do think they're using New World as kind of a proving ground to prove themselves as a studio.
I just wonder if they're going to ever acquire anybody else. Like one of the things we've been having a conversation in the back end, because the thing is, like, from the monetary perspective, like people who think New World's a failure, it's like they sold 10 to 12 million units of the game. Like at a minimum, that's the current potential player base, right?
I would love to know what those people make annually, because if that much money is considered a failure, then you know.
Right. Well, it's they're just trying to put a label and discount it, because that's the pattern. Like I'm a guy who picks up on patterns, and it's like I'm especially having played what Final Fantasy 14 1.0's beta all the way through to now. Like I guess I'm definitely more willing to let games like breathe and kind of, and I like that process. I like having a direct impact, what I feel, and the fact that the devs communicate and they listen, and the way we know that is that we have evidence of that already. Like they're taking our questions and then they're implementing them, and then they're listening for feedback, and then they're taking our questions, and it's this cycle. I like that. I feel like I have a direct impact on New World in a way. Like, I mean, not a 1-to-1, and nor should they weigh my opinion heavier than anybody else's, but I love that process. And having been through multiple MMO launches, I go, yeah, this is just what I kind of signed up for. Like, I'm just kind of used to that in that regard. The question is that, you know, I see people are making an utopian based argument saying this is exactly like, oh, they shouldn't have this process. It should launch with 3 years and 4 years of content already. And I go, well, I mean, yeah, maybe launch your next game on an island somewhere, let it exist out there, let us all like wish we could play it, then fix the issues, and then say, hey, now we're ready for the world. Now we're ready for everybody to jump in. But that doesn't make financial sense. So it's like that's one aspect of it. But I could see Amazon at this point, though, like based off of just what they've done, you know, picking up maybe like Daybreak Studios. I don't know if that's still their name, but they have like EverQuest. Like, I don't know why they're buying so many like MMOs in that regards, but you got Smiley. Like, I'm saying that, are they going to make another non-MMO genre, or do they just see something in the data that we're not privy to with Twitch, with like their marketing arm? Like, why MMOs? Like, like, I don't know why. They either really want them and really like making them, or they have information, you know, in terms of kind of this, you know, what we all never see because they pay for these very expensive market research studies. So that's just the thought in my mind. You made a noise, Red. I want to, before we wrap up the show.
Well, you just mentioned EverQuest is like dear to my heart. So when you said Daybreak, it's like that would be awesome. Obviously,
what if they didn't EverQuest next? Like, imagine that being brought by Amazon.
Man,
you know?
I've already bought that game, dude. I expect that game for free because I definitely paid for it. But yeah, it's like I think, Brian, and I know we don't want to hear this. None of us, everybody that maybe has monetization problems, plug your ears. But like, I think they know, like, we're such like a dedicated player base, and we're willing to pay $15 a month and microtransactions and like, you know what I mean? Like the MMO, like ESO is one of the most highly monetized games I've ever played in my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Lost Ark, extremely monetized. Destiny 2, which I would consider an MMO, extremely monetized. Like, you know what I mean? I unfortunately, Amazon, you know, it wants to make money from this stuff, and I think this is the perfect genre to do that in. And honestly, I do think that there is this resurgence of this genre that's happening with New World, with Ashes of Creation, with the westernization of Lost Ark. All these, you know, like, again, Final Fantasy 14, because of Asmongold and a lot of the reception of like WoW and how it kind of went on the decline, I think people are really, really interested in finding a game like these to dedicate their time to, for sure.
We didn't really talk too much about monetization, and I apologize. I'm keeping you guys a little bit longer, but if we could, I'd love to know your thoughts on the potential battle pass. Last year, in terms of content creation, lots of fear mongering about how Amazon is going to go through our pockets and it's going to be pay to win and all these things. And then Lost Ark comes out, and all those people are like, "Oh, who cares if it's pay to win? Oh no!" Like
they literally dropped $8,000. The people that were afraid that New World was going to have XP potions dropped $8,000 in Lost Ark. It's insane to me, but that's the way, clickbaiting works, I guess.
So the battle pass though, like they said they were going to look into one. The only reservation I have, I'll give my thought and I'd love to know yours, is that if it expires. Like I don't want any artificial FOMO. FOMO exists. There's a natural aspect, the fear of missing out, but we see Jarrett saying battle pass is blah. I think that if they actually had we know that they're probably going to add a battle pass. That's what they kind of communicated over a year ago at some point. I have no problem if they do that, as long as I can equip any past battle pass that I've purchased, because I guarantee you the way I play games, like it's going to stress me out. Like it's, having a artificial clock on me, like it basically means I'm not going to spend money on your battle pass, but you take that clock off and you say, yeah, like maybe there's an efficiency window, like for the next season, the next 90 days, you're going to level at this normal pace. And then after that, if it's an archival battle pass, like it levels slower or something. Like, I don't care. But, that's where I'm kind of crossing my fingers and trying to give that feedback before they announce it. What do you guys think about a battle pass in terms of that model for New World?
What game, Brian, what game has that battle pass system? Because that actually sounds like a really cool idea, honestly.
So the one game that didn't implement a progression system that actually was good is Halo. So Halo's battle pass system does not expire. So you buy a battle pass, you keep it, and so you can level it up. And so the next battle pass they're launching is in May or June or something like that with the next season. And you buy a battle pass, it's yours, and so you can work on the current season, or if you let's say you come into the game years later, you can buy up the past battle passes that you missed and you can level and grind out that. The only downside is that I say Halo and people are like, ugh. I'm like, Halo's progression system sucks. It sucks. Like I was about to say something even cruder than that, because of how it actually changes how you end up playing the game. So it ends up from just an objective based mode. Like you'll play the challenges and not the objective, because that's how you progress. So they have to fix their whole progression system itself. But the non-expiration has me as a dad saying, sure, I'll buy that battle pass. I got no problem with that, because I will grind it out, but I don't want to grind it out on a timetable that you give me. And that's just it. Because we're not planning on having any more kids, but if Julie says that we're having another kid, I'm not playing many games at that point where I'm helping Julie and helping with the kids, doing the diapers and stuff. Like that's my job. But you don't have a timer on it. I'm like, I will buy every battle pass, because at some point I will have time that I'll go back and grind it out, because I have an addiction for XP and grinding games. Like that's my genre. Oh, you have XP? Oh, there's a grind. All right, Brian's here just chipping away. I'm not the speed guy. I'm just that, I'm the water making the Grand Canyon guy. But
tortoise.
I'm the tortoise.
I'm
the tortoise. Yeah. I look like a tortoise.
That sounds like an incredible system. I feel like if they did that, revenue would go up too, because you have an opportunity to sell those old battle passes and they don't expire. So it seems like that's a good way to make some additional money as well. If they implemented a battle pass, I think that would be awesome. That would be a great way to implement it. The whole idea of a battle pass, though, I don't know, man. Battle pass, would it be implemented with some sort of seasons? Like how would you do seasons? Like they mentioned seasons a long time ago too, whenever they started talking about all this stuff. Like seasons for territory control, in my opinion, makes zero sense. Like I don't know if my company fights to own a piece of territory, and then it resets the territory, so I would be tilted, and I think people would absolutely hate that. I think seasons for 3v3 arenas makes a lot of sense. I think something like that would be fine. I think those would go hand in hand pretty well. So I guess it all depends on how they would implement it as to how that would affect my opinion on whether or not a battle pass would be okay. I would buy it if it's cool, for sure. I have no problem with buying stuff like that in game, as long as I get value out of it, right? Like if I feel like I'm getting value out of getting the cosmetics or getting value out of the money that I'm spending, I'm in, because I play the game and I play video games a lot. It's my form of entertainment. So I don't have a problem spending a little bit of money on there. It just needs to be reasonably priced, and I need to get value for my money. and I'm good. I'd be okay with it.
Cool. What about you, Danny?
Your idea is brilliant because Amazon have Prime Gaming and the ability to do drops, which I think most of the time you think as battle passes. I hate the term battle pass. It always reminds me of like Call of Duty or whatever, and that's typically turns off people who are mostly just playing MMOs. But typically, when you take a battle pass, you take something that you have to do now. You have to do that content because in the future you're not going to get it. So it's that way to get that initial bit of money. But Amazon have that luxury of having drops and Amazon Prime Loot, which they can do as that. Another way to monetize with Amazon Prime, and that can be exclusive content that you only get if you redeem it at that particular time. So it makes absolute sense. I'm just looking now. Obviously, there's the PvP reward track coming soon, so they could be testing the water to see how people react to the reward track. Which then, if that's received nicely, then potentially that's when they'll start looking at bringing out the battle pass. But I have no issues with it. I think they could name it better and theme it nicely to the game and just kind of integrate it really nicely. But this also goes back to potentially the free to play. If the free to play goes well, the PvP reward track goes well, then you got a free to play game with a good battle pass and exclusive content through their other means of monetizing us. Then we're all in. I mean, I was just going to say before we talk about monetizing, I was looking at Lost Ark when it released. I think 1, 2, 3, and 4 on Steam were like the £90 pack, the £60 pack, whatever it was, and it was people were spending £100 on a game that hasn't even released yet, and people are up for spending money in the MMO scene. So,
hands down, I think gamers love to support the games that they're enjoying, and I think that's the aspect. The question that ends up being is like, how do you find that balance? And for me, in my test is always like, does it give me stress? Because like value is one thing. Like it's like I'm already here. Like the value is like, oh cool, I'm just grinding, I'm unlocking this stuff anyway. The stress comes like, this is also me in Destiny. Like Destiny has the battle pass, etc., and it stresses me out because I'll play and then it's like, oh gosh, like I don't want to feel like I need to. And that's one of the things that I feel about New World being very relaxing. But that's more than enough show for today. And I thank all my panel here. Where can people find you? Let's start with Danny. Once you get your plugs in, we'll go Danny Redbird and then finally BDLG, who is actually live right now. And I'll put his link in the YouTube chat for those of us hanging out here.
Yeah, just look for Danny TV, Twitch, YouTube, wherever. Danny TV, I'll come up.
Danny, this is an audio podcast, Danny. It's Danny, DANNEA.
Danny!
TV. I'll help Danny with his shout out there.
Thank you.
Yeah. You can find, just all things Studio Loot. We just put up studioloot.com. That's a hub for all of our websites, so you can find any of our websites through that. So that would be the one thing that I would promote today, obviously on twitch.tv/redbird REDBYRD, because the internet,
because you're cool, man. Because you're cool.
Can't spell anything correctly if you want.
it works. As somebody who's massively dyslexic, it actually works. Like, when things are spelled correctly, I don't get it right. I'm like, oh man, and then people make fun of me, and I'm like, oh, it is what it is.
Yeah. Hey man, some of us don't spell or write well, so it's fine. It's okay.
Bordy, I dropped your link in live chat, but where can people find you?
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. Just studioloot.com. That's where you can go. You can find all of our stuff there. Everything we cover is over at studioloot.com. And then, I just stream on Twitch. It's just twitch.tv/BDLG.
And guys, if you're listening and you're following the Ginger Prime, Nation, I guess, the Soul Nation, we've got, I split out a bunch of different content. So I just created Ginger World Gaming. So if you guys want direct, like, New World guides and news, like I'm able to post that up here. And then what people are seeing is they're more of my editorial, like deep thought experiments, etc., that are being posted on the Prime. And I saw some people in Bordy's chat asking, like, is that the Final Fantasy 14 guy? Nothing hurts me more than putting me in a box. And it's like, okay, like if you want to consider me that, like, I love 14. You should go play 14. It's a great game. I would like to at some point at least evolve into be like an MMO guy. Like, it's like, yeah, we like this genre in and of itself. So I tend to, I get that label and I'm like, I've played more New World than I have played Final Fantasy 14 in the last year. So who knows? We'll see if that ever shifts. But people, I guess it's always kind of true. People find you for one thing, and then that's the thing that they like you for. They're like, oh, I like it when Danny plays New World, and Danny's like, oh, I also played these other games. They're like, interesting.
Don't care.
All right.
Yeah.
Don't care. No. One day.
That's what
Have you quit that game?
Yeah. Have you quit that game yet?
New World.
You play, somebody's like, you play bad games. I'm like, well, all right. I'm having a great time.
Thank you. Thanks.
Guys, that's so much fun. Thanks so much for joining us today for today's episode. This has been Epic Loot Radio. You have been hopefully entertained, informed, and if nothing else, got some good stuff in your feed today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for the likes. Thanks you so much for the subs, and we'll see you next time. I had a little bit more time. I could have drawn that out a little bit more. I was like, oh, it's been a little bit. I haven't done a podcast in a couple of weeks. I think the last one we did was with Force Gaming, which was really cool to see kind of his take, especially on New World, etc. Because like he overplayed it during the alpha and the beta, and it's like, yep, you're waiting to come back now. So, guys,
nice.
y'all have anything else? Like, because I don't want to keep you because I know Bordy's over there fishing.
I'm just fishing away, man. It's all good. Yeah, dude. Thank you for having us.
Gotta get to 200. Gotta get to 200. Man.
I gotta
it's
get
great
there,
up here
man.
at 200. It's great at 200.
Yeah, just rub it in. Just keep rubbing it in. It's okay,
dude,
Brian.
it feels so good. It feels like it's so satisfying.
Hey, Brian, if I give you my login, do you want to re-level fishing?
Yeah, invite me to your Dadgum podcast, and sure.
Hey, man. Next week. What are you doing next week, dude?
Just tell me the day, man. Just tell me the day. The chat, thanks so much for hanging out. I appreciate y'all. I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream itself, and wish you guys all the best. And we'll see you next time.
Before you let your chat go, Brian.
Okay.
What are you only invite gingers on the podcast, or what's going on?
I think my track record shows absolutely.
Absolutely.
This is the prime ginger, the Soul Nation. We've got non-gingers. We got ginger adjacent.
Or Ed Sheeran's next week, and then
dude, that'd be wild if anybody wants to reach out. Like... All right, guys, chat. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you next time.